In this talk, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is fear. And, fear can be an incredibly limiting factor in our life. It can be something that stops us from pursuing goals, um, from trying out new activities, from pursuing uh, opportunities at work or in relationships. And it's really a shame. And I would say it's not a conscious process. Sometimes we acquire a fear in a particular area, and it's not like we set out to have that fear. It's something that our nervous system learns. And I like to use the metaphor of a garden, and that fear acts like a weed. It can affect a particular area of our life, and then for a while that part of our garden is not a place that we can enjoy. So the I like this idea of fear-scaping, where we're gonna identify a fear and learn how to deal with it so we can open up those areas of our life again. So what you want to do for this talk is think of a particular goal or something in your life where fear is stopping you. And in relation to that, you can ask yourself the question, well, what is it that's stopping me? Now, we know it's fear, but we want to get a little bit more specific. And you may want to take out a piece of paper and journal about this a bit. So, uh, yes, we have fear in our body, and it's good to notice, okay, where in your body are you feeling that? Where does it come up? Is it in your chest? Is it in your head? Where localize it in your body? But then really stay with this question of, well, what is it that's stopping me? What am I afraid of? Is there a fear of criticism? Is there a fear of embarrassment? Is there a fear of danger in some way, or harm, um, or a fear of some kind of negative consequences, like you know, getting fired or losing money? So identify the fear and write that down. And I do like to take a moment and look at the fear from a very rational perspective for a moment, like leaving all the feelings aside and saying, okay, if it's a fear of losing money, I want to figure out how realistic is that, or can I use data to support that idea? If I'm afraid of getting criticized, again, if I were to think about that logically, I want to, kind of move into what I call the Mr. Spock part of my brain. How likely is it that I'm going to receive criticism? And just make a note of that. And what you want to do is identify some small arena where you can begin to have movement. So I like using the example of public speaking because that was an area where I was completely blocked for quite a few years. And the problem that I had was I didn't really have a way of practicing it, because for me, if I was in front of more than two people, I was frozen. I was completely paralyzed. So what you want to do is find what's some way that you can practice, that you can experience what I would say is a tolerable amount of fear, so that you're able to move and you're able to teach your nervous system that it's okay, it's safe, and I've taken risk into consideration. If you use the example of rock climbing, you wouldn't, it makes sense to be frightened of doing climbing up a cliff if you have no safety lines, right? But if you have safety lines and you're only climbing a certain level, then that's a step that you can take with safety, and um, you can begin to learn what it is you need to learn to thrive in that domain. If there's a concern about financial harm, you want to figure out, well, what's an amount of money that I can risk, that I can begin to experiment with. If I'm, say, learning how to invest, what's a reasonable amount so that I can practice? Or, when it comes to investing, you can do, what people call paper trading, where you're running scenarios hypothetical scenarios, so you're able to gain skill without feeling actual fear. Now we've identified, okay, what is the particular thing that I'm fearing? We've looked at it logically, and we've started to identify an area that I can practice this in. The other thing that I like to notice is when I'm experiencing this fear, what is it that I'm picturing? What is it that I'm telling myself? Because nobody just feels fear. To have fear, there has to be a cognitive process that's supporting it. So, for example, if I'm walking at a very high precipice, it actually won't make me nervous unless I'm imagining falling. So in that case, I'm picturing that I'm falling off the edge, and that's bringing up fear. So in relation to your particular fear, if it's a fear of criticism, what are you imagining? Are you imagining people kind of scoffing at you? Are you imagining being fired from a job or scolded? What is the actual content that you're imagining? You're certainly not imagining being successful in that domain, or else you wouldn't, I imagine, be fearful. And what I'd like you to do with this, once you notice what it is you are imagining, I'd like you to put something else on the screen next to that, which is, I want you to imagine, what if this went really well? What if you climbed the rock face and you were safe and you were thriving? What if you gave a speech and people were really enjoying it and laughing and enjoying and nodding? So we want to have at least both of these pictures next to each other. And as one of my teachers said to me, at least give equal billing to imagining things going well as you do imagining things not going well. And with all of those if you go through all of those steps, kind of like a flight plan, I think what you'll find is that you'll get to a point where you can at least practice and start to develop the skill that you need to get good in that area, to get moving in that area, and eventually to thrive in that particular area. One of the things I did initially to get over stage fright was I would go to the park and play music really far away from people. And then gradually I started getting used to people being around me while I was playing. And then gradually more and more. And eventually I went into the subway, so there's even more people, or I'd play in the street and more people until I got used to just playing with people around me. Now, at first, I would play and I would still be nervous. So that was actually a valuable lesson. I realized that I could play while experiencing fear. And once I knew I could do that, then actually I started to relax. I sort of gave myself permission to feel the certain amount of fear. And then I kept practicing and eventually got better and better at it. Doesn't mean that I don't experience jitters from time to time, but the point we want to take here is you don't want the jitters to stop you from learning and from growing. So again, identify what is the particular fear, where are you feeling it in your body, how are you picturing it, have you broken it down, can you figure out a place where you can test and practice at a certain level, and can you picture things going well as things not going well? Once you have all those things in place, I think you'll find that you really start moving and you're able to start growing. So I hope this goes well for you and would love to hear how it goes for you.